Welcome to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset, the leading data and analytics company for the cannabis industry.
Welcome back to the High Rise, a laid-back, data-back conversation where we talk all things cannabis, from U.S. MSOs to Canadian LPs, products and market analysis through the lens of data. My name is Cy Scott with Headset, and I am joined, as always, by Emily Paxia of Poseidon.
Hey everyone, welcome to the High Rise.
And we are here with a very special South by Southwest Poolside Session with a very special guest of Dustin Moore, co-founder of Embarc. Welcome, Dustin.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us. These are some of our favorite things to do, just these quick sessions to learn a little bit about yourself, your business, how you got into the industry and all of that. So why don't we start there and tell us a little bit about your start into cannabis?
So I had a bit of a non-traditional entrant, not as an operator, more on the policy side, but cannabis was an issue of right and wrong for me very early on. My father had brain aneurysms when I was 7, and at that time, medical cannabis wasn't even legal in California, and he actually used cannabis to mitigate seizures because the medication that he was taking, changed who he was fundamentally. So he started using cannabis before it was even medically legal and actually got in trouble for using it. So from a very young age, I saw cannabis as an issue of right and wrong. But fast forward, aside from, obviously enjoying the plant through, my late teens and through college, I got into the industry through policy. So in 2012, started working on policy and ended up running the Proposition 64 campaign to legalize adult use in California. And then, after that, dove in as an operator and built out the retail footprint we have today, as well as our events concession company.
That's amazing. It's fantastic to hear kind of that personal background. I think so many people in the industry kind of have that personal side that really brought them into the space. And so on the business side, you guys do retail with Embarc, correct?
Correct, yes.
And how many locations is that, and kind of what's that experience like?
So we have 4 doors open today. We're developing 6 other doors right now. So, 10 store platform today that will grow into a 20 plus store platform by the end of next year. Our shopping experience, we believe, is fundamentally different than most dispensary experiences. Most things are behind counters and glass cases, very austere environment that really doesn't help normalize the plant at scale, which is our single charge, is empowering consumers to enjoy cannabis wherever they are and to help normalize the plant. So we run a bodega model where folks are able to pick up and touch products before they buy them. We find that people are 60% more likely to purchase something if they've touched it. And now that we've moved into, arguably a CPG industry, that connection between the consumer and the flower and the products has changed. So we believe the bodega model really helps people kind of go back to that, dispensary experience of yesteryear, where you can actually interact with the plant in a way that's more meaningful than, behind cases, et cetera.
And you're located entirely in California. And one of the things we talk about on the podcast is a lot of the people who've looked at the state get very mystified and kind of overwhelmed by it and feel it's kind of too much to navigate. Will you talk to us about how you've figured out how to kind of work within the framework of California and when you're identifying locations or markets for your stores, what it is about those markets?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I think most people look at California as an unlimited licensed state. And, in some ways that is correct, but not when it comes to retail. Retail really is a limited license market because of the 550 plus jurisdictions in California, there's only about, 30% today that even allow dispensaries. In those 30% of jurisdictions that do allow dispensaries, they have limited numbers that they can issue. Early on, folks focused on Los Angeles and San Francisco. They're vanity markets. They're large markets, but often oversaturated, large prevalence of a traditional market. And, you get to a saturation of dispensaries that's greater than 1 per 15,000, which is kind of our core metric when we look at jurisdictions, no greater saturation than 1 per 15,000. But we're really looking for markets that have a very dense population with very few licenses. So as an example, in the city of Fairfield, there's about 130,000 people and there's only 4 licenses. City of Fresno, 21 licenses for a 3 million person metro market. So these are incredibly limited license markets that we move into, and we find those to create value for ourselves, as well as the opportunity to present cannabis for a first time to a user base that's never been presented with legal cannabis. So we can help shape preferences in a way, that you just can't do in San Francisco and LA.
It's really true. And, one of the things I've been spending a lot of time doing in California is looking at the migration of populations, and you can see where people are kind of gravitating towards. And then you can also see in the basket sizes in the state, places like Fresno moving more inland. And it's interesting because California, from a politics standpoint, has a very different political profile depending on where you are in the state. But when you get into some of these markets that are considered maybe more conservative, you actually see a higher ticket size around the purchasing of cannabis. Remember, we were looking at that really cool interactive map.
That's right.
Yeah. We should find that again.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I'm excited for those other markets as well because, like you said, I mean, 3 million people in the Fresno metro area. I think it's like 1 million right within the city limits of Fresno. And San Francisco, we're around 700,000.
That's correct.
We got like 1 billion dispensaries.
Yeah. It's like 120 in process right now.
Exactly. Yeah. And like they're all south of Market, which like no one wants to be south of Market unless you're in the fancy spots right now because it's going through a time, but there are certain areas that are popping back up again.
I love the bodega model. You just don't see it, I think, enough in the industry. You know, one of the things I think is limiting in this space is, you know, accessibility. And, you know, a lot of, as we try and bring more people into the category to come and explore cannabis, I think a lot of new consumers are a little intimidated, right, to walk in, you know, have to, you know, see a bouncer or someone at the door, and then you go through, you don't know what to expect, and then you got to, you know, have a conversation with someone, you know, and you may not know what you're talking about, and you feel like you might be embarrassed or all of that. So I think the bodega experience for that, like, first-time shopper, it's a great opportunity for someone to, you know, look around and kind of explore on their own, and I'm sure you have people on staff that can help them if they have questions. Do you find, like, is there a dynamic with that I don't know, people give you feedback that they like that experience, that they like to kind of explore and touch and feel and look at things like they would at purchasing pretty much any other product?
Yeah, I mean, Sai, you kind of hit the nail on the head in that when people go into a dispensary, not only do they go through the bouncer and then they wait in the long line that snakes around, and then, you know, they're pressed up against a counter with 4 people breathing down their neck because they've been waiting an hour too. So you make these snap decisions off of a menu board. You don't know what you're doing or what you're getting. So for us, we actually, you know, our sales associates are called guides. We spend 3 weeks with them before they ever hit the floor. Our store is broken down into individualized departments. So we have a specialist in each individual department that can interact with the consumer and actually provide that one-on-one education. But, you know, for the folks who want to come in and get through the door and for us to increase our retail velocity, we do a lot of curbside pickup and then express order. So folks are, you know, ordering before they come in. And that's been a way that we can kind of, you know, bifurcate the experience for folks who really do want to spend the one-on-one time with a guide to better understand, you know, how cannabis, you know, wherever they are in their cannabis journey, how we can help improve that process. But folks that want to get in and out, we have alternative methods to increase our velocity as well.
That's great. And on the assortment front, I noticed you guys dedicate shelf space to products that are promoting inclusion and diversity in the industry. How does that work? And are there enough products out there to be able to do that? Are you looking for more? Do you have to like seek out these brands? Or are there enough of them to kind of fill the shelves?
There are more than enough to fill the shelves. And this came back from, you know, my advocacy and policy and our CEO, Lauren, and our desire really to advocate for folks who, you know, have been marginalized and likely to be, you know, left behind if there aren't operators that are doing the right thing. So we've dedicated 50% of our shelf space. And what that allows us to do is to present these products to customers in a way I think that, you know, many other stores are not doing it. And these are really good products. They're often, you know, craft products. The care that goes into them, you know, far exceeds those of some of the, you know, kind of mass-produced products. So it's not just altruistic because this is paying dividends for us because they're really good brands. But, you know, we are always looking for new products. So, you know, would love to hear from any brands that would like to end up on our shelves.
I think that's a really cool way to approach inclusion because it's really happening in these markets, and it's really important to have that on the shelves and the representation because we could all, I go into a lot of different stores and I feel like people have a lot of the same product assortment, which is great because you want to have some of the staples, the ones, you know, people are like have stronger brand recognition about, but it's also amazing when you have an opportunity to still have a brick and mortar experience to introduce people to new things. And I think that's one of the great things about Embarc.
So outside of Embarc, what else are you doing around the cannabis space?
So we extend our 4 walls of our retail into the live event space. So that's something that we've been focused on from a policy perspective for the better part of the last decade. So California is one of the few states where you can actually sell cannabis at live events. So last year at Outside Lands over the Halloween weekend, you know, we were able to serve, you know, the 200,000 people that were at Outside Lands with Cannabis Direct while inside of the festival. And, you know, back to the inclusion piece, you know, we launched a number of social equity brands at that event. And, you know, the city of San Francisco has set up some very empowering policies. And, for us to be able to take a live event format, essentially move our dispensary in a massive festival in North America, and then also be able to launch, inclusive brands was a dream come true. And, I've been working with, as we're out here at South by, been working with South by for the last few years on helping them, bring cannabis to this festival. And I really do believe that, cannabis at live events, given the restrictions around advertising, et cetera, is going to be the future of normalization. So that is a part of our business that just is an extension of our four walls of our retail establishments.
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to go and see Grasslands, which is what the activation is called at Outside, because Outside Lands is really cool. They have wine lands, beer lands, grasslands, I'm sure like cheese lands.
There's so many lands.
There are lots of lands.
Lots of lands.
And they all pair well with cannabis. No, but it was really cool to get up there. They had comedy activations. They had brand activations with different sponsors that were participating. Yep. It's really dreamy. It's like up in this like wooded hillside overlooking the whole festival. And so you're just like up there, and it's a really fun experience. Every time we go, I'm like, this is what California cannabis is about, is being this engaged and activated around it and having experiential cannabis consumption. Because, I mean, we were talking about it the other night. We got to go see Spoon, and it was one of the first times I've been in a music venue and there was like no one consuming cannabis because we're in Texas. Yeah. And it was definitely an odd feeling for me. And if I have a preference at an event when I'm taking in movies or music, I really like cannabis for that. And I think there's no wonder that it's always been a mainstay at every event you've ever been to. But so I'm really excited. I'm glad that, Dustin's team does a really good job. And this is something I always talk about as an investor. We always look for operators who don't shy away from the regulators, but instead actually go like right up next to them and say like, I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to show you how we can do this well so that everyone's safe and everyone's having a good time. And that's exactly what you guys did. And I thought it was a really good look, because then the regulators feel smart, they feel safe, they feel like they're doing their job. And then we can continue to kind of see these moments of progress. And I'm glad to hear South by Southwest is definitely leaning in. I mean, how long have they had the cannabis tracks?
So I think the first track was in 2019, and there's been unofficial parties that happened forever, but I think 2019, and I think things are starting to evolve in Texas, which is exciting. But, as coming from the bellwether state of California, I mean, I do believe the policies that we are pushing are what ends up, what the national footprint will eventually look like. So, it's incumbent upon us to get it right. And with the regulators, they want to get it right too. So it's just a matter of, I think everybody wants the same thing. It's just, how do we get there together? And that's, we find ourselves in that unique position to hopefully be leading by example.
Yeah. Quick sidebar. One of the ways that I really met Dustin is that he was working with us on our Mexico work and trying to get
so much fun. I miss Mexico City.
I wish things would move faster so I can spend more time down there.
It's a wonderful place.
Yeah. Was that due to all the policy experience you have? Is that where the Mexico connection came from?
Yeah, I was working for the Mexican Senate, and actually, Emily was working with a company down there, and we collaborated together. And the legal framework that's moving forward right now in Mexico, while delayed, still largely is very similar to the policies we put forward. So it will be interesting to see, that government eventually figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like eventually we'll see something, right? I see headlines all the time, kind of waiting. But yeah, are you guys pretty positive on Mexico? You feel like it's going to happen?
It will happen.
Yeah, just like federal legalization.
Yeah, I mean, just like how we've got, it's like there's these external factors that get in the way. And I would say they're having, kind of like we are, they're suffering from like true challenges in their federal government around many, many things, including getting like pharmaceutical resources to kids with leukemia. Like there's a lot of issues going on at the federal level down there. But I got to run around with these guys and meet some of the senators, and there was genuine interest. And one time, Tay and I went and met with so they call it the DFA, the District Federale. Yep. That's Mexico City, and it's actually kind of like DC, right?
Exactly.
Where it's a federal province or something.
That's right. Yeah.
And so they were very interested in okay, maybe so the country doesn't do it, but maybe we think about how to do it here in Mexico City. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of genuine interest, but there is fear, and I think they'll tiptoe in with medical and then get into adult use. But I just thought that was a neat through line for when you're in this industry and you kind of run into people in different ways. It's fun.
Yeah, well, very good. Dustin, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people learn more about you, about Embarc, about the other projects you're a part of?
So goembarc.com, so GOEMBARC.com. You can find, everything out about us right there.
Perfect. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the High Rise Podcast, presented by Headset. For more information on Headset, visit headset.io.